Hello, I'm Pam O and welcome to the first and last ever episode of the podcast that only exists for speech class and explodes right after listening, or as unfamously known as post-schiral. In today's first and final episode, I'll be diving into autism and how it impacts the people affected with their speech and communication skills. This episode is very personal to me as I myself know many people who are diagnosed with autism. I'll be going over the definition of autism, its symptoms, and then we'll have a special interview with one of my closest friends who has autism to talk about their personal experience with autism and how it affects their speech and communication skills. Autism has been a term that's been thrown around a lot, both in professional terms and unprofessional terms. So much so that it's hard to tell nowadays what is true and what are just some misconceptions. So, to clear up the air, according to the most recent definition by the American Psychiatric Association, quote, autism spectrum disorder, also known as ASD, is a complex developmental condition involving persistent challenges with social communication, restricted interests, and repetitive behavior. While autism is considered a lifelong disorder, the degree of difficulty in functioning because of these challenges varies between individuals with autism. End quote. And despite being diverse, hence why it's called a spectrum, many autistic people still struggle with everyday communication and speech in formal settings. Though there is no way of being autistic, the process of being diagnosed with is something still in development to this day, as autistic-led charity Reframing Autism states, quote, culturally and linguistically diverse, so known as CALD, families also face disproportionate challenges in accessing accurate diagnosis due to race, language, and cultural differences that are unaccommodated. These barriers are rooted in historical, ideological, and economic and political biases, as well as the oppressive treatment of disabled individuals from Black and Brown communities. End quote. And even in something as simple as a speech class, it can impact autistic individuals on delivering speeches without even knowing they themselves are autistic, such as me. Which is another reason why I'm touching on this subject on my first and last ever episode. So, without further ado, I'll start the interview with one of my closest friends. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Would you mind giving a bit of information about yourself and when were you diagnosed with autism?
Hello, my name is Ryder. I use they, them pronouns, and I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD at the age of 15 in my sophomore year of high school.
Okay, now that we're done with introductions, it's time to move on to the questions. So, my first question is, when making a speech, what helps you prepare for it as a person with autism?
Alright, so when I am making a speech, I have these habits that I have to do or else I can't focus. So usually I put on PJs, like right off the bat. I'm like, okay, I'm getting comfy. I get myself a snack, one of like a texture I like. Make sure I'm not surrounded by any sounds that really bug me. And then I sit down and I put on some music. I usually listen to like heavy metal, like Five Finger Death Punch, Metallica, lots of Linkin Park. I love Linkin Park. Pretty much just anything with heavy amounts of bass and different sound because it's something that really helps me focus. It gets me energized, it gets me pumped, but it also helps me like focus on my topic because I can like feel the music, if that makes sense. It's very hard to explain. I put on some music, sit down in my PJs, eating a snack, usually with a fidget. Sometimes I draw while taking my notes or while making my presentation so I can focus and, just being mindful of like my surroundings and making sure I give myself the best environment to focus in.
Do you think there's any way that teachers can accommodate for students with autism when making a speech?
So, for teachers accommodating people with autism in class, there's quite a bit that they can do as educators, but also people can do as peers. So, if someone in your class, like you're presenting, and someone's tapping their foot, don't point it out, don't stare, don't make it awkward. They're not doing it to distract you. They're not trying to be rude. They're just trying to focus on your speech. Because for me, I stim all the time. I can't keep my foot still. I have to have a fidget, or else I cannot focus for beans. I can't. It's like I'm in another universe, and I'm not. It's like Charlie Brown and the adults, and literally all I hear is like wow, 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 and nobody wants that. So someone's like, tapping a foot or fidgeting, or has like one of those pop-it fidgets or something. Just don't point it out. Don't make it. If you bring attention to it, it makes that person like self-conscious and feel bad about it when it's not necessarily something they can control. Another thing is if it's someone who struggles with speaking verbally, because there are some people with neurodivergence who are nonverbal or are semi-verbal but still struggle with it. So just not pointing it out, don't draw attention to it, just let them keep on keeping on, because they're gonna fight through their struggle to try to finish their speech.
Is there anything that you think teachers should know on the downsides? And do you think that there's any way teachers can also accommodate for that?
One more thing that teachers can do to accommodate is if someone accidentally reacts out loud, because I know I've done it before. There's a speech that this kid was giving in my class this semester in college, and it was basically about the gist of it was like there are going to be good people in your life, there are going to be bad people in your life, but you have to take the good from it. So even if this person sucked, and did you wrong, or took your $20 or whatever, they're there for a reason, because sometimes without that person you might not have met this other person, kind of was the gist of it. But during that speech he was giving examples of why this one person was a bad person, and basically they had asked him extremely inappropriate questions, and my immediate reaction was, what the F? And I thought that it was in my head, I thought that was just, that had remained a thought. I did not think I said it out loud. So after I thought that, everyone looked at me and started laughing, and it was really awkward because I couldn't figure out why they were laughing until my buddy to my right was like, hey dude, you just said that out loud, and I was like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. I thought that was an inside thought, I think is what I had said, specifically word for word, that was an inside thought. So then they laughed more, because it was really silent, and I had said that unintentionally. So if someone accidentally speaks out, just make sure not to point it out. People, you can laugh about it, whatever. Just make sure that the person doesn't feel bad about it afterwards, or if you catch that, just subtly tell them hey, I know this was probably an inside thought, just letting you know you said it out loud, because chances are they're going to be mortified. I was mortified. But then after the speech, the guy who was giving the speech at the end, he was like, thank you, writer, for that comment. And I was like, that wasn't intentional, but that positive reinforcement really helps, because it's it's okay, I know it's not something you control, and I'm validating that I know you're trying your best, kind of is what that meant to me. But also he was an amazing speaker and was able to turn that into part of his speech. He was able to use my reaction to be like, oh, exactly what they said, what the F, yeah, that's what I'm saying about in regards to this bad person. So that's just one of those things that everyone can accommodate with, in terms of listening to a speech, as both a peer and a educator.
This is true, as the National Library of Medicine lays out an example of bad timing, such as an autistic adolescents utilize their own laughter as a fallback strategy in all conversations, including serious and somber discussions. End quote. And this is something I even struggle with too. I usually try doing the right thing, but as many autistic individuals say that they lack the social knowledge of what to do in certain situations. They were just talking about the positives at the end. So, in lighter news, do you think autism brings out any positive qualities when making a speech?
If it is something that I'm really passionate about, I fly right through it. I am able to make this amazing presentation, something I'm really passionate about and something I'm really proud about. And then when presenting, because I am passionate about it, I don't struggle with confidence towards it because it's something I feel so strongly for. And that ends up being a really good thing, especially if my speech is emotional or more towards like human rights and that kind of thing, because a lot of people with neurodivergence have a very strong sense of justice, and that allows me to create a speech I really care about and really proud about, but also really helps me like get through the emotional portions of it, because I'll be so passionate about the topic that I'll be able to get through it before I get emotional. I get emotional like towards once I'm done. You know, if it's like a really heavy topic like racism or discrimination or violence, you know, I'm usually able to get through the facts and the presentation before I get really, really emotional, which can really come in handy, because then I can use that and make my words as powerful as possible for my audience. You know, I want them to feel how I feel. I want them to feel so strongly about people, you know, deserving rights like I do.
So, in conclusion, autism spectrum disorder, also known as autism or ASD, impacts the diagnosed with social skills, restricted interest, and their speech skills, which can make it a struggle to give out a speech, or sometimes even enhance some aspects of giving out a speech, which both my reliable sources, my good friend Ryder and Autism Ran and medical organizations, support. Speaking of which, if I could close this final episode, it would be this. In making this podcast, it helped me understand my own brain just as much as an autistic person's brain. And as mentioned before, I might suspect myself of having autism. Hopefully, after listening to this, it encourages you or a person who studies in neuroscience to expand the diagnosis, since, again, mentioned before, it's very limited right now and still in development. This is Pam O for the podcast that only exists for a speech class, also known as Post Vero, and thank you for listening.